Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. We have a very wonderful, handsome, sultry, good-looking, talented, charming individual by the name of Ronin Fawks. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing real well.
Good, good. I'm really excited to have you here because if you guys don't know, Ronan was actually the host of his own show, and where he interviewed tons and tons of people. Like it's got to be, if you had to guess how many people you've interviewed or how many times you've interviewed someone, what would it be in the ballpark range?
At least upwards of 50 people, at least
So
somewhere in that neighborhood.
it's a lot of people. So it's awesome
Yeah,
to flip the script and have you actually as a guest to be able to talk about
yeah.
you instead of you talking about other people for once. So
My
it's
favorite
like,
thing to do.
right? I know you were gonna love. You already said like during Taryn's interview that you were gonna love the compliment portion towards the end. So
Yeah,
you're like, oh
yeah.
yes, please give it to me. So it's gonna be so good. All right. Yes. So I am super excited to have you here. Please, if you can take a chance to go to take a moment to go to Twitter and Instagram and follow Ronan on all of his social medias, which I believe it's Ronan Fox. Is that correct?
Yep, it's Ronin Fawks on
Perfect.
everything.
So you should be
FAWKS.
yes.
No
So,
E.
so you should be able to see it on the overlay, his actual social media handle. So make sure to follow him first and foremost. Now, Ronan, could you please take a moment to actually introduce yourself and what you're about, where we can find you, and all that kind of stuff? I already like you a lot because you have a backwards cap and a beard and are a dad. So like,
That's right.
only
We
good
have a
people
lot
have
in
those
common.
things. Exactly. Yeah. All right, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I am Ronin Fox, at Ronin Fox on Instagram and Twitter primarily. I'm getting better at Twitter actually. And I am entering the foray into the streaming area. So I'm on Twitch now. I am at Ronin Fox on Twitch. And I am just finished up my first game, which was Detroit Becoming Human or Become Human. And I'll be sort of transitioning there into open world RPGs. So if you're down with like Elder Scrolls, Mass Effect, Witcher, all those sort of things, that's what I'll be streaming primarily on my channel and anything new that comes out. And outside of that, I do a lot of writing. I'll be writing for your tabletop book, which I'm sure we'll
Yeah,
talk
Emerald
about.
Templars. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
And
and Taryn are the first ones that I hired to have like be a freelance writer. So I'm so excited
yeah.
about that. Yeah.
So I do a lot of writing and just both personal and professional when I can, and play a lot of D&D when I can. So I got a game coming up in at some point in the near future, probably end of summer-ish with Logan, which is DM screening. So
Hmm.
that'll be a campaign that we run, and then I'll be in Valrook or Terran's game on
Far
TIO
Realms.
whenever it
Yeah.
starts. Yeah, on Far Realms. So
And Phoenix by
good little
Night
bit
in the
thing.
summer. Yeah.
Oh yes, and Phoenix by Night. I will
Oh,
be
I
a
I literally just,
ridiculous
which I had to have
vampire
a
man.
meeting, but like I literally just wrote the 4 episodes that I'm in charge of. So I think the
Yeah.
episode that I put you in, as long as it works for you, you'll be
Hmm.
like a necromancer of some sort, like a necromancer vampire or just necromancer human of some sort. So I'm excited to like
Dig
tell
it.
you about it so that you
Yeah.
can.
Yes.
So it'll be good.
Absolutely. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So when I first heard about you and got to see your content and everything like that, I loved it. You have like a really good energy about you. Like all jokes aside, you always come with such good vibes and make everyone feel so warm and welcome and everything, which I really appreciate. And not only that, but you're also a writer, and you're very passionate about that because you are like also writing a novel. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep. That is sort of the forever constant behind the scenes of all the other things that I do is work on that novel. So I'm chiseling away, and eventually it'll come to fruition, I'm sure. But yeah,
Yeah. If you had to put, can we expect it by 2022, end of 2022?
I would love to have a first draft by the end of 2022 for sure.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
It is it's a constant creation of mine that's been sort of very fluid over the years.
Yeah.
It's morphed and changed and all that sort of stuff. And it's almost like it's become sort of a you know how some people like go fishing and things
Yeah.
like to do a hobby. I just like to go to this world and play
And
with
right.
it and mess with stuff and write. And I'll write a story about a character that is never going to appear in a book, but I just want to experience that person. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just it's just my fun thing to do.
It's the beauty and the curse of a writer. You just have
It really
never
is.
ending
It really is.
ideas
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. So it's like really
Yeah.
really cool. But yeah, so could you take a moment to tell me about your origin story? Now you are not just one thing. You are multiple things. So
Sure.
but going in the realm of writing, what would you say your origin story was? Was it something that you discovered by yourself, or did someone else in your family or friends sort of encourage you or guide you down this path?
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely self-discovered.
Yeah,
I did, and it was kind of later in life. I watched April's, and she was an avid reader and writer as a young child, and I wasn't. I mean, I was an avid reader, but writing was never high up on my priority list.
yeah,
I did sort of the STEM route through school. So I was a very science guy.
yeah,
My degrees are in biology and chemistry. So that was sort of my focus, and so scientific writing was about the best I ever did.
yeah,
But then after college, I got into a job. Right out of college, I got into a job at a lab doing biology things.
yeah,
But the whole system was very automated, and so there wasn't a lot of things for me to do. So I would
yeah,
spend 6 hours a day like with nothing to do. Hashtag best job ever. But what but what happened was I ended up reading a lot, and then that reading sort of turned into I want to do that. I want to make my own world, and it was like
yeah,
Tolkien and all these people that Rothfuss and all these people that made these amazing worlds, and I'm like I want to make something that I would want to live in. Like that's the
yeah.
whole point. So that's sort of how that whole thing started, and from there it's just
I can't tell if that's me or is that him. Might be me. Oh, are you there?
yep.
Okay, okay, perfect. All right, go for it. Sorry.
All right, I don't know where I was, but basically, yeah, I think it was me because now my internet connection is unstable.
Okay, no worries. Keep it going. Yeah.
But it's that time of night. Anybody that watches my Twitch knows this. But anyway, so it basically was a journey that not only did I have to figure out what I wanted to write and how I wanted to write it, but then also discovered the actual writing portion
Yeah.
of how to do it because I came into it so late. I didn't have creative writing classes in school and all that sort of stuff. So it was all very self-taught sort of thing.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot because I was in the same vein. I wanted to be like a politician or a lawyer when I was getting like out of
Yeah.
high school and everything. And then I got into my first political science class, and I was like, I hate this. And then, yeah, and then I found Dungeons and Dragons, and then by like writing a story for Dungeons and Dragons, that's what like inspired me to be a writer. But I was in the same boat where I never took like I never really paid attention to English class. You know, I got like C's and like
Yep.
whatever just to get by and all that kind of stuff. And then when I started writing articles for the Geek Life, my website and everything, a lot of comments would be like, you know, I love the message of this, but you have horrible grammar and
The
punctuation.
technical skill is
Exactly.
garbage.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh man. So thankfully, you know, some people were harsher than others, which
Hmm.
like honestly, the harshest teachers were the best teachers for me
For sure.
because they like hammered it in. So like you
Hmm.
know, there's certain things that now I'm a stronger writer and all that kind of stuff. But I completely relate to you that like it wasn't until later in life that I actually appreciate the art of writing and find out that like oh shit I want to you know do this you know
Yeah.
for even a living honestly. So that's really really cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah, I read in somewhere in there that like Tolkien did Lord of the Rings in his mid to late 40s, and I was like,
yeah,
okay, all right, I feel good now. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
that's a very like that's a notion that I really am glad that it's being changed. You know that
mhm.
if a lot of people are like if I don't do anything by the time I turn like 25 I'm a failure, but
Right,
really a
right,
lot of awesome people accomplish like so much in their later years when they you
hmm
know when their kids were growing up and out of the house or when they became wiser and gained more experiences, you know their writing became much richer, you know and all that kind of
for
stuff.
sure.
So that's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Would you be able to
yeah,
take a moment to talk to us about your novel, what it's about, and all that kind of stuff?
yeah, sure. So basically, I guess the elevator pitch, 5 second pitch, is essentially I'm taking the aspects of Dungeons and Dragons and the aspects of shonen style anime primarily and sort of mushing them together. So anybody that has been somewhat familiar with Campbell's Deep Breath
Mhm.
campaign or thing that he's been working on, it's similar in that aspect. So you take um, the things that you love to see in the shonen stuff. So the friendship, the party dynamics, the tournament based things, the
rivalry and
rivalry,
yeah,
learning the core lesson of the novel through fighting and battles
yeah,
and through your enemies and making your enemies friends. All those types of elements are sprinkled in there. But then you have the heavy D&D stuff with the party system
yeah,
and that the traveling, the world be all end all quests and all that sort of stuff is also very much a part of it. So, and then it takes place in a world that I've created called Valandrica, which is just your sort of typical, that was the other aspect of D&D, your typical high fantasy, elves, dwarves, all that sort of stuff. And it
yeah.
has, at this point, 7 or 8 thousand years of history. Because like I said, that's what I do in the hobby in the spare time. So you just keep building and fleshing it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so.
That's super cool. Yeah, I always love like that's one thing that blew my mind when I first watched anime was that Eastern philosophy was so different from our Western philosophy, you know, that
Very
like
much so, yeah.
you know, in Western stuff we see a lot of films where, you know, the bad guys are just bad and the good guys are just good and there's no change. It's just like you
Right.
defeat them by killing them and that's it. But then in like, you know, Dragon Ball Z and Tenchi Muyo and all these different ones, like you might meet someone and they beat you up and then you learn a good life lesson from it, or you beat them up and then they grow as a person and their story continues, you know, and then you
Right.
know, they
And then circle back 400 episodes later and they're helping you.
exactly
Like,
yeah they,
yeah,
they become good friends because it's like I
yeah,
respect you now because I see your truth and your all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
it's like it, yeah, so that whole thing, I there definitely needs to be more content of it now that we as Westerners have been so influenced by those creations. So
hmm,
it's cool. I'm excited to like
yeah,
check out your book when it comes out and everything, so that'd be like
yeah.
super awesome. And
And
then
the internal monologues are a big part, and then
yes,
also the long ass fight scenes. I love doing. I don't think there's enough novels out there that like get into keep a fight interesting and keep
yep,
it long. Usually they're really short or they're to the point. They are a quick blurb or blip in the story, and I think that
yeah.
they could be a dynamic element to the story. So that's what I'm trying to change a little bit there.
That's pretty dope. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, as content creators, we can often find ourselves working beyond our limits and ultimately burning out. And I know that you have a full time job, you're a father, and you know a husband and everything like that. So you have a lot of things going on for you, as well as being a novelist and everything. So, what are some ways that you make sure that your mental health is taken care of?
Oh, I'm supposed to take care of my mental health. No. Yeah, I mean, so actually, I can speak fairly recently, in which case I did not do that.
Yeah,
So there, as the talk show that you mentioned before, part of that was creating a sort of late night show style opening of you go through and you kind of poke fun at the players and the stories and things like that. And obviously I don't have or didn't have a team of writers that was doing that. I was doing that. So I was
yeah,
watching 4 or 5 4-hour long campaigns a week, which took every minute that I wasn't working pretty much to get through. And then,
yeah,
I would basically Saturday through Thursday, I would sit and watch those things. And then Thursday night, I'd write up the thing. And then Friday, I'd do it. So it was not good. So I learned a lot in that you have to essentially saying yes to everything.
mm-hmm.
The problem is when you're in a position of at the beginning of a tunnel and you
Yeah,
can see the light, you think by saying yes to everything that you're going to get to the light. And it only takes experience and wisdom to know that that's not necessarily the case.
exactly.
There's a little bit more that goes into it than just saying yes to every little thing.
Yeah,
So that's a big thing that I've learned. It's just like, I want to participate. I want to be active, but I also know that there are limitations to that because, like you said, I have family, I have a full-time
mm-hmm.
job. So you have to pick your battles a little bit and decide which one what you want to do and what you want to spend your time on and find that thing that you think is going to give you the most opportunity to grow.
Yeah, that's very wise because it's true. You know, there's a couple lines my mother said, you know, my mother and father had different sayings, and my mother's saying was, it's either in life, it's either a hell yes or it's a no. There's no in between. There's no don't settle for maybes or kind of okays.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah, that's
either
good.
this, yeah, this is either gonna be awesome or you know, if it's anything less, then I'm not for it. You know,
Yeah.
because and that's one thing that I feel like a lot of us in content creation, especially as writers, you know, we have a lot of anxiety and self-esteem issues to the point where we don't value ourselves as much as we should. You know,
For sure.
our time, our work, our energy, and all that kind of stuff. We usually undervalue it so much and give it out. You know, and then my father, which leads to my father saying, which was giving pearls to the swines, which is like, you have so much good and so much talent, and then you give it to people who don't appreciate it, or to situations or projects, and it doesn't. There's no return on investment, or it doesn't serve you in
Right.
any way. You know, and yeah,
Yeah.
now that we're older and wiser, we understand that, like, you know, no, I have a lot of value, and I'm only going to give it to people who appreciate me or that will serve me in some capacity. And
Right.
that's very true. Yeah. So it's
And it's a weird dynamic, particularly in what we do. Maybe not so much as the writing capacity, but the tabletop thing, because
yes.
I'm surrounded by my friends and I want to play with my friends and I want to do all that. But then at the same time, you do have to kind of have some introspective
Mhm.
perspective and say, okay, that would be fun. But I just don't have the time. I'm sorry. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and for me, there's also the scheduling issue on top of everything else, because a lot of my friends play on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast. So there's
Yes.
like, they're like, oh, we're starting at 8. I'm like, cool. And they're like, oh, 8 West Coast. I'm like, oh, no, that's no, that's like 11 o'clock here. I'm good. So
Yeah.
I got to go to bed. So there
Exactly.
was some of that too. So yeah, you just got to know, and you got to feel around and find your perfect fit, I think, is probably the key there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really cool. So, uh, we all know that you've accomplished so much during your career, as like in your personal life as a father and everything like that, and also in the tabletop RPG realm and everything. But I also know that there has to be some L's you've encountered along the way. Now, usually L's stand for losses, but in the first person I ever interviewed, Eliana Murillo, she phrased it greatly, where it was like, L's no longer stand for losses, they stand for lessons. So, what would you say is one
Yeah.
of the biggest L's that you've encountered over your career, and like, what did it teach you? Now, it could either be a situation where you had everything, you came in prepared, you were sharp, you were, you know, all this kind of stuff, you had everything together, but still it didn't pan out. Or it could be a situation where you legitimately underestimated it, and then you legitimately messed up or something like that. What do you feel taught you the biggest lesson?
I think I honestly, I will probably, at least in recent history, the thing I was just describing taught me the biggest lesson, which
Yeah.
is spreading yourself too thin. It creates a compounding
Mm-hmm.
issue. And so what happens is you, I wanted, basically what I wanted to do was, I wanted to, when I set out to do the tabletop thing, and I wanted to do it online, because it's not a, it's not a huge community here where
Yeah.
I live. So my goal was join a community, become friends or make friends with people, join a tabletop game that's consistent. Um, in order to do that, I felt like I needed to say yes to everything. So that's what I did. I ended up doing
Yeah.
a talk show for whatever, a year. So, I mean, I didn't even end up doing a tabletop game. So that's, you know, lesson learned there. But also what happens is, when you spread yourself too thin, when you say yes to so many things, I didn't have time to do things with kids. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have time to pay attention to my wife, and you know, that became an issue. That became a huge thing,
Yeah.
which was ultimately the primary reason I ended up stepping away. It just so happened that other things were happening as well, but that was my personal primary reason to do that. So I think, as far as lessons go, people are so creative. People are so ready to show people
Mm-hmm.
what they can do, um, that, and oftentimes it puts you in a worse situation than what's, you know, obviously going to be best for you. So
Yeah, exactly. Because that, I feel like anyone who's a content creator has gone through that exact same scenario, you know, where their partners, you know, or their jobs will be like, "Hey, we're noticing that you're like not giving your all in this thing," or
right,
like, you know, like it's
right.
very, especially with partners, you know, because that's a very intimate space where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
because for me, my personal example is like my fiance, she would call me out and be like, "You're so stressed about this thing that's going on. You need to nip it in the bud because you're not being a good, you know,
For
stepdad. You're
sure.
not being a good
Yeah.
partner. Like, I don't want to be around you while you're like this. So you need to get it sorted," which is good. It's a good, like, kick in the butt, you know, because it's like, you're
Mm-hmm.
right. I can't
Yeah, it
just
is.
like, you know, sit in this and dwell in it. Like, I gotta like get out of this because yeah,
And
it's
I have an extremely obsessive personality. I actually suffer from OCD, but any kind of hobby and anything that I do is I usually sink my teeth way too far into it.
yeah.
Even with the Twitch thing. So my wife kind of steers that right out of the gate and be like, okay, yes, you can, but like we need to focus on
Hmm.
how and why and when and all those sort of things. So she's the sort of rational side of my brain that I don't have at some
Yeah.
point when it comes to creative things. So
Yeah, good partners. That's a whole
yeah,
other topic. Yeah,
it is. It
is
really is.
because
Yeah,
it's
for
very
sure.
supportive. Yeah, because now whenever I say I consider a project, Alexia, who's my fiance, she like lays down the law where it's like this is either going to give you accolades or money. You need to choose. Like otherwise, you
Yeah,
gotta say no because that's 3 hours that you're going to take out of that time, and you're never going to get back. So you need to make it
for
count.
sure.
So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, now that we're playing with those rules, and now the world's
Yeah,
different. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
So
I'm not just doing this for fun. Cool, cool, cool.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's wild. So pivoting on the other end of the spectrum, what would
Mhm.
you say? What was your favorite W that you've had now, or win? Now it could either be a small thing in the very beginning, like writing, for example, being like, oh, I wrote something that someone appreciated or something like that,
Mhm.
or it can be an actual big event that you really like. Man, I killed it at that time.
It's weird. I would say that a lot of the exposure that I've had has been recent,
Hmm.
sort of since COVID and all that sort of thing. So as bad as COVID's been, I've personally benefited from it in
Yeah.
a creative space. Um, but having uh, people like yourself, like Casual, and a bunch of other people that have reached out and expressed interest in or a desire for um, just my input on things
Hmm.
has been uh, crazy reassuring,
Yeah.
a little scary, super scary, actually. So,
Yeah.
but just this sort of community-based acknowledgement of my existence and skill tree
Hmm.
has been kind of scary and not what I anticipated, not what I set out to do. Like I was like, I want to find friends and but then this is sort of bled over because everybody that I'm friends with online are creatives,
Hmm.
and that's just sort of what we do. But just sort of that acknowledgement among people I respect
Yeah.
has been a huge W, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing because I completely relate to that as well. The same mindset. COVID's terrible. A lot of people lost their lives
Right.
over it. Our life is completely changed forever for it. But creatively, we've had the chance to be able to explore what we actually enjoy and what we don't
Mm-hmm.
enjoy and everything like that. And it's wild to see that kind of stuff. And I especially that line where when people like reach out to you, when other people can see the value in you and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, Ronan's such a good writer, he's so creative and witty, I want to get him involved in this project to add his like magic to this. Then on your end it's like, oh, I don't have magic, like I'm a
Yeah,
fraud,
I don't have
like
magic. I'm not witty. I'm an idiot. Like,
yeah, exactly, like
yeah.
we as creatives usually undervalue ourselves and talk
Mm,
down about ourselves, and other people just see us as a shining light that they aspire to reach at that level. So it's a weird
yeah.
like a relationship that we have with other people because everyone, there's not a single person that's like, oh, like I'm super super good, like
Yeah.
you guys blah blah blah. So it's
See, I've had people point out because I have a shtick of being sort of egotistical and
yeah.
overconfident, and I mean like anybody that has spent any amount of time with me should know that that's a mask.
Yeah.
Because I'm also immensely self-deprecating, and that stuff comes much more natural.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the other thing's just something you put on to make jokes, and honestly, I think it helps sort of elevate the self-deprecation. If you put yourself on this high horse and then you knock yourself off, then
Mm-hmm.
that's funnier.
Yeah.
And that I'm always in it for the bit. So, so
Exactly, which is funny because I used to use self-deprecation as a way of like making comedy because I always hate the
yeah,
comedy of like someone attacking another person,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
it,
for sure.
So I always used I used to use self-deprecation to make jokes at my own expense and make everyone else laugh. But ever since I met Alexia, she's like, stop that, I don't want to hear it anymore. Like you gotta like
Yeah.
because it was
No,
yeah.
yeah, it's bad. It's because it's a constant, no matter how much of a joke it is, no matter how much you recognize it as a joke, it's still knocking yourself and it's still,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's one of those weird things and like uh yeah, that's like one of my pieces of wisdom is getting to that point where you can feel comfortable in your own skin. You know, like yeah, you can have those anxieties, but at least you like can carry forward being like I am a competent writer. You know, I am like good and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because for me, I went through the exact same thing. Because I feel like we're very similar in a lot of ways, both in
Hmm.
fashion and also in like
Sure. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
So
I mean, we understand what fashion is. Like,
exactly,
so.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. So speaking as a really big example, and this is like a real talk sort of thing, is like I am constantly like I really really want to succeed in like content creation and all that sort of stuff and everything, but obviously in content creation there's no clear cut path, just like in anything
Right.
else in life, on how you're gonna make it or whatever. So like doing one event led to so many opportunities, and I thought it was a low key event that was super chill and all that kind of stuff, but people just right time right place saw it and was like,
Yep.
that dude's really talented, let's get him. And then when they contacted me, I was like, oh shit, are you sure you got the right guy? Like this is like, have you seen my work? It's garbage. And then but
Yeah.
you
Right.
can't say that to these people who are
Right.
like, like because they're like, we want to give you money for your talent. And I'm like, and that's a big moment where you kind of like, that's like kind of a coming to Jesus moment, that like
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I have talent because like these people, sort of. But it's something that like never goes away, because every article or every event that's like someone's like, I want to pay you for this thing, it's always like I'm going to do a bad job and they're never going to hire me again, and yet they keep coming back and being like, yeah, let's do another one. Great, can you
Right.
do it again? So I completely relate to you, and like you are very talented, like with your jokes and your wit and your charm and everything like that. So I cannot wait to see what you have like coming down the pipeline, because you're also at that caliber. That's why I want to pay you to like work on my stuff, because yeah, it's just like so much untapped potential. And the sad thing is, it's always locked behind our own self esteem. We're our
It is.
own sort of,
I
yeah.
think that there is a line, and I'm sort of starting to come to terms with it,
Yep.
that you can be self-critical, and to a point that may be a good thing. I don't know, but you also have to understand your value,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is something I'm sort of coming to terms with, and accepting that you have value, and what that value is to those around you, and whether that be writing or jokes or just a
Hmm.
person that can be there to talk to, you have to understand what that is about yourself. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since after we all left sort of like Fable 42, it's beautiful to see everyone go down their own paths. Like you're doing your
Hmm.
own Twitch streams, Casual's doing his own thing, and like, Taryn's doing her own thing. Like everyone's growing and finding their wings, and like, instead of relying on one, putting all the eggs in one basket, you guys are now like, no, we're gonna fly ourselves. Like I'm gonna,
Right,
you
see
know,
what happens.
exactly, and it's
Yeah.
benefiting, it's working out, like things are going awesome. So it's like really really cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, so what are some geeky passions that fueled you and your creativity to make you who you are today, both as a writer, as like a comedian, entertainer, and everything?
So I would say, at least from a writing standpoint, um, it would be a general sense of escapism. That is something I've always suffered suffered from.
Yeah.
This idea of like wanting to be somewhere else, and that comes from a place of sort of mental health issues, anxiety, panic, all that sort of things. And so that was what I did a lot as a kid. I watch a lot of wrestling. That was my
Yeah,
only
WWE.
TV show that I would
Yeah.
watch. Yeah, because it was just a different world. It was a lot of drama and a lot of things like that. And then I would do read fantasy novels, anything that would just take me somewhere else. Play a lot of
Yeah.
games. That's why I'm heavy into RPGs, is because I got to be somebody that wasn't me in a place where I wasn't. So that is sort of where I came into the gaming aspect of it.
Hmm?
And as far as the comedy thing goes, I was a I was a second child, which is generally and my sister, who is 2 years older than I am. She grew like really fast. Like she the size she is now, she was in fifth grade. She was a full adult human.
Yeah.
And I hit my growth spurt kind of late, and
Yeah, I
so
didn't
she
realize you were
was.
6 feet tall. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
damn.
Well, so I wasn't actually taller than her until like high school.
Yeah.
So a lot of our time, and she was a big, strong softball player and all that sort of stuff. I was kind of a weak kind of kid, so there was a lot of like uh, physical oppression from her to me. So,
Yeah.
and I didn't, so, when you can't fight, you become snarky and all that sort of stuff. So that was my defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And then I became, uh, kind of unhealthy and really overweight when I was little. I experienced a lot of that and a lot of bullying and a lot of, uh, sort of rejection from the opposite sex and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. So that's where the sort of
Same.
self-deprecation hue. Yeah. So I sort of learned that if I did it first, if I made fun of myself first, then when they did it, it wasn't as funny because I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I just said that. So you know what I mean?
No
So
one could
that's
hurt
where a
me if
lot
I
of
hurt
that comes from.
myself. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, and that's where the emo version of me comes that Taryn knows so well. So that's all that history. So I mean, I kind of, you grow out of some of that stuff,
Yeah.
but mentally it's always there. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
It's so funny that like, well, I don't know if funny is the right term, but like
It's always funny.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. The childhood sort of trauma that leads
Yeah.
to different like emotional intelligence and skills that we obtain, through
Hmm.
like, yeah, and that's still with us sort of thing. So it's wild, and I could definitely see it, because it's like that's a sharp wit that you have. Like, the moment something happens, you're
Owned.
like 0.5 seconds, bam, joke, and then just like
Right.
so it's like super super good. It's like a talent, you legit are a comedian, so it's like really really awesome. And then and yeah, so let's say you could go back in time and sit down with a younger version of yourself during a really really down and out moment where you had like no hope for the future, maybe it's a rejection or what have you. What is one piece of advice you could give your former self to let them know that their journey that could be a little bit easier if they follow this sort of path?
Yeah, I mean, well, the benefit, as you know, to having kids is you do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I am taught, like my son, I'm talking to a younger version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had these sort of conversations, and I tell him, and the same thing I would tell myself, is to remember that what you're experiencing is valid, and important, and it's a valuable part of your journey,
Yeah.
but it's a singular moment in a long journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that this point, every point you have, there's a decision that you can make. You can go left or right on any decision, and just because you make the wrong choice once does not mean you need to do it again.
Yeah.
You can learn. So basically, take the moments, internalize them, think about them, and realize that it is just a very small portion of your journey. So don't get too hung up on this failure or this loss or this rejection, because if you do, then there will be opportunities that you will miss along the way because you're still focused on this past previous thing. So that's what I would do, because I used to get extremely hung up on just trivial shit.
Yep.
I think again that comes from, so I've had anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and obsessive compulsive disorder, which I'm on medication for all three.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that piece of advice is difficult
Yeah.
for somebody in that position because that mentally sometimes they can't do that because they obsess over certain things. So
Yeah.
the other thing I would tell young me is don't listen to your parents. Mental health is important.
Exactly.
And go get help.
Yes.
Because I didn't go get help for my mental illness until I was like 33.
Yeah.
So it's been like 2 years since I've been on medication. So,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually part of the reason why you see me here. Cause part of my issue, I got a gnat flying around. Part of my issue was extreme paranoia.
Yeah.
Which means I would never put myself out there. You would never see me on camera or talking to people on the internet or social media. So if you look at my social media, they're almost all 2 years old because
we're good.
Perfect.
All right, perfect. So, that whole conversation on being okay with sort of like failures, not getting hung up on stuff and everything like that. That's so true, because and on a real talk, everything that happened in Fable 42 like really wrecked a lot of us. And if anyone's out of the loop, there's a brand called Fable 42 that we were a part of, and then things were really, really bad, and there was no signs it was going to get better. So we did a mass exodus, and now we're in better places, But at the time, it did a huge number on our mental health. We were all distraught and distressed because a lot of us really loved and appreciated that brand, not for the the higher ups, but more so for simply just the community and everyone we got to play with and everything like that. So I personally was so like obsessed with it and like oh man, I can't believe this happened. This is horrible. How can I get back at X, Y, and Z? You know, like all these weird things. And then my sister, who's like a huge entertainer in she works for BuzzFeed and all that kind of stuff, was like, D'Angelo, you realize there's gonna be a lot of shitty people on this road to like content creation. Like whoever that person was who did that damage, like he's a tiny little person compared to the other people that you're gonna meet. So like you gotta get over it, dude, and focus on what's gonna help you out next your next thing.
Well, and one of the things you learn, or at least I've learned in the beginning of all this, is that. So I come from a very small town in West Virginia. I make jokes about it all the time, but it's 100% accurate. One of the things that you learn immediately when you get on this sort of internet scene, and particularly the tabletop scene, and how I joined, you realize that there are just so many damn people doing this. Like, and that's good and bad thing, I guess, if you're trying to you're a voice in a crowded room.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of find your value, find your niche or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you also realize that, like, God, there's a lot of cool people doing this that I want to know and I want to be friends with. And, some of the people that like I've seen, from far away, and now I'm like talking to them, like Alicia. The first time I interviewed Alicia on the show, I'm like, I'm interviewing Alicia Marie, and like, this is nuts. And like today she ratioed me on Twitter. Like it's a whole thing. It's just like, it's crazy. It's nuts. So it's just things that, whatever, you have to realize that there's a lot of people out there, and if something doesn't fit, just move the fuck on, because there's plenty of other things that you can be doing. So
exactly. And the other point you brought up that was beautiful was mental health. Like I'm pretty sure everyone has something that they suffer from. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
And
I think it's part of being an adult at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, it was ADHD. Like I had no idea. Like, because ADHD was something that other kids had. There was other people.
Right.
But for me, like and I didn't know it until I actually had a conversation with my partner, because she goes like, why do you have the like the music going, the TV going, the like all these different things going on at the same time, like how can you process all that? And I'd explain that like, oh well, it like kind of quiets all the thoughts that I have, for all these different things, whatever. And I was like, is that what you go through? She's like, no, it's not at all what I go through. And I was like, oh, I must be different then. And then like, so it just like was a shining moment that like, and then doing research and everything made me feel way better, because at first I thought I was like, man, I'm broken, I'm dumb, I like can't focus, so it made me feel lesser than my peers. But then when I like there's actual name for what I had, it made everything easier to like cope with, and so it's like that's a big piece of advice too, is like if you're suffering from something, go seek help, because it'll only benefit you in the long run.
And the thing about it is, so my sort of journey was a little different in that, like, I knew from the age of, I think my first true full-blown fetal position panic attack was pre-10 that I can remember.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been something, and my dad has the sort of, I guess, mainstream OCD. He's like the clean germ person, you know what I mean? Mine's not that. If anybody come to my house, they would know. But so I watched somebody with OCD in my life, and then compare it to me. I'm like, yeah, clearly I have that. Mine's different, but it's the same damn thing. But he never got treatment. He's almost 80 years old, never did treatment. His whole thing when he was younger was like, I'm not wrong, everyone else is wrong. Everyone else should clean like me. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had that same mentality. And then I was worried about, I liked my personality. I liked being the center of attention, and I like all these things. And I was worried that if I sought treatment, got on some sort of medication, I would, sort of traditional, become a zombie and lose all my personality and all that sort of stuff. And it's a lot of fears you have to overcome to get there. And then also some of the problem of seeking treatment was the paranoia about medication and things like that I already had. So it was like a compounding thing that was weird. But eventually, through, again, having a network of people around you, your wife and that sort of thing, pushing you, and finally did it. And I was like, oh shit, where were my 20s? Like, I wish I did this like 10 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. It's true that but again, even though we had to go through that. Thankfully, the next generation, like our kids, will have it easier, you know. So
Yes,
like,
100%.
yeah, because I
Yeah,
can
we're
already tell my
watching out for that
stepson.
sort of stuff.
Yeah, because I already tell my stepson has ADHD, so it's one of those things where like I have to sit down with him and sympathize with him. It's like I totally get it, dude. Like you want to do all these things, and like I understand. It's that way he doesn't feel alone as I felt when I was younger. So it's
Yep.
like there's hope. So it's
Yes. Yeah, it's good.
it's good.
It is. It'll be better, hopefully.
Exactly. So okay, where can we find you online?
You can find me at Ronin Fawks, Twitter, Instagram. I don't care if you follow me on that. My new thing is Twitch. Follow me at Ronin Fawks on Twitch. That's where I want to be seen. So I'm trying to sort of, again, scream in a crowded room and eventually be seen there. So if you want to check me out, there's the way to do it.
There we go.
And
Thank you, Sen. Yeah.
yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Perfect. And then okay, so you know what this part of the interview is because you've seen a couple of my interviews. So just like sit back and like take this all in. It's like I'm gonna flip the script. I'm gonna insult you for the next like. No, but yeah. So on the real talk, all jokes aside, I have immense respect for you, Ronin, because while you're also a performer and a talented comedian and a writer and everything like that, you're also a great father. Like I've gotten to spend time with you and your son playing video games and everything, and like he's a good kid.
Yeah.
Like he's very sharp and like witty and everything, just like you. And then so I can tell that you're a good dad, you know, and everything you tell me about your wife is always like great stuff. So I can tell that you are wholeheartedly a good person that's like talented and smart and like hardworking. So you're definitely one of those people that needs to be shown to the world. That way you can actually thrive, you know? That way if one day, if your day job isn't something that you actually want to do for your whole life, you can one day either, you know, go full blown as a writer or, you know, get just supplement income from being a writer. But you definitely need to like flex that more because you have so much talent that it's disgusting to like keep it hidden from the world, you know. So I really appreciate you because you always bring good vibes wherever you go, and so many people have so many like you're loved. Like a lot of people in this chat like just completely love you, and myself included and everything. So like you're just a blessing on this world. So I want to thank you for one, being alive, being in this community, and everything that you've overcome to get to this point, because you're amazing. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And with everything you said.
Awesome. Perfect. So make sure to follow Ronin on all he does. Make sure to harass him to tell him to finish his novel because we want to see it. You can expect some of his writing to be in Emerald Templars. Oh yeah, I have the shirt on. So like, you know, I want to throw this man as much money as I can so he can create the art that he's, you know, he was born to do and everything. So yep, follow on social media. And other than that, I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.